didn't necessarily make the plan. And that happened with me last Sunday when I looked at a bulletin program, and Peace Like a River was on it. And I said, whoa, wait a minute, now that's what I needed. And you see, I was supposed to do this last Sunday, but with the GA report, I slid down a week. So right at the last minute, my synchronicity just got slipped out of order there. So I appreciate Dixie for being patient. When she asked me about a song, I told her essentially that, and I said, do it over, and she says, no problem. So you notice at the end of the program, that's going to be the ending song. Now the reason I thought it was appropriate because Edgar Casey liked water, and supposedly he picked Virginia Beach as his home base in his final days because of water and something about crystalline sand. You know, rocks have geodes, whatever, has lots to do with crystals. And I believe that because back in the early days of my ham radio, we had to use a crystal to broadcast. Today, they just sort of set a button type thing. It's all artificial. But then, if we want to change frequencies, you unplug one, put another one in, because it had to be so carefully controlled so it didn't interfere with other people. So there's something about water that's going on and crystalline that most of us don't really understand, and I don't either, but I do accept it. I mean, I think it's there. And also, my Uncle Nate, by the way, is my guardian angel if I refer to Uncle Nate. Like the synchronicity I was talking about, I think Uncle Nate does that. And Uncle Nate is an uncle 5 generations back. And he had Macon Manor up in the northeast part of North Carolina. And it's a state park now. They've sort of renovated the house and some of the buildings and so forth. And so that's my Uncle Nate. And how do you know who your guardian angel is? Well, I'll tell you how I found out. I heard my wife talk about, not much, she didn't make a point about it, but by the way, if I use the term Edna, you people, that's new to me, that's my wife. It's been gone about 13 months now. But occasionally she would just make reference to guardian angel. And it got me thinking, now this is years ago, and it got me thinking, so I just sort of call it a little prayer or whatever you want to call it, but asked who my guardian angel was. Well, I just didn't think much about it, and it was about 2 weeks. All of a sudden, I don't know, but I just sort of woke up one morning, and I just knew. I mean, you know, I didn't hear a voice out of the sky, nothing like that. I just knew. So the first thing I said to Edna was, my guardian angel's Nathan. And she says, Nathaniel Macon, Uncle Nate, we call him. She's a genealogist, you know, and she knew all that stuff. So Uncle Nate is my guardian angel, and he's a good one. I knew that before I knew who he was. And Edna had some grandmother or something back up the way that was hers. Well, today it was very difficult for me to get things together because there's so much to talk about and say. So what I'm going to try to do, it reminds me of these kids on these, surfboards, I think they call them, you know, just sort of jumping from one thing to another. And that's sort of the way I'm going to have to do because there's so much to cover. I hope to select some key points pertaining to Edgar Casey and have some handouts to give you. And on the handouts, I would suggest you could best use them, just rather than like read them here or whatever, take them home, and if it was me, prop your feet up, get you some tea or a cup of coffee or Jack Daniels or whatever you do, and take your time. I mean, don't try to just read that, I only get this read during this commercial type thing. Read and think a little on it. And I hope to have time for us to do just a little bit of that here, of while we are here. Now, Edgar Casey was a Christian man. He belonged to a Christian church, and he taught up until his death. From a young man, he taught a Sunday school class. He read the Bible for every year of his life. That means somewhere along the way, when he was 20 and 30, he read it more than once a year because he had read the Bible for every year of his life. He basically said he read about 3 chapters a day, and it makes me wonder a little bit because he wasn't a particularly smart person. He had this gift when he was roughly 8, 10 years old, something like that. He had an appearance of, my terminology, appearance of an angel. It was apparently a woman, Angel, and she married, he would go out to himself a lot, by the way, beside a creek. Now, we're going to sing about a river, but it wasn't a river. I don't think there's a river that goes through Hopkinsville, but creeks do. So he lived by where he could walk a short distance, and it was his little hangout to go. He'd read the Bible there. He would just sort of say it. He would go to that area to get the cow, for example, to milk. He was the kind that, I can't hardly understand this, but he's the kind that got up at sunrise. I mean, he'd be down there to watch the sun come up. So he, very Bible oriented, but he didn't do well in school. His uncle, back then they had, I believe they called them, let's see, not, I can't think of the right word. It wasn't public schools like we have now. You know, you would pay to go to school on Gunsmoke. You know how they would teacher come in and the community would just pay them for a year type thing. Subscription or something like that. But anyway, his uncle was teaching, and he went to Casey Edgar's daddy and said, it's hard for me to talk about this, but I just don't think something wrong. He just can't. I had him spelling today. He couldn't spell. I kept him after school, made him write on the board. And his daddy was an insurance salesman, and he was sort of a little edgy type person apparently. And so that night the daddy was trying to help him, and he got aggravated with Edgar and literally slapped him. And Edgar asked him, says, "I'm tired," and Daddy said, "I am too, so can I go to bed?" And he did, and slipped the book under his pillow. And the next morning when he awoken, he could spell. As a matter of fact, at school, the uncle later told his daddy, it wasn't just that he could spell the word, but he was like he could see the page. He could tell you what page it was on and other things on the page. Just sort of like you'd look up and see the page, I guess, I don't know. But anyway, now that was when he was just somewhere around the 8 and 10-year-old thing. And this angel that appeared to him that I mentioned earlier asked him what he wanted to do. You know, later as you grow up, he said, "I'd like to heal people." He had been and heard a fiery preacher somewhere along the way, and had, you know, now everything about Casey is very Christian oriented, but it doesn't matter as far as his teaching go. I mean, you know, they're just as real and so forth. But if you sort of anti-Christian, it would be a drawback, I guess. But anyway, then he went on for. Let's see, he was probably he didn't go beyond the 8th grade. The books say that they couldn't afford high school, but my guess is